Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Asiya. I'm Asiya Nasir, your host, where we bring you guests and topics that educate all women and the ones they are raising. Our show is about a mother-daughter combo on a mission to empower our communities. Today, we have my daughter, Jasmine Ballew, CEO of Bayou's Corner. Thank you for joining us, Jasmine, and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great. I'm so excited about tonight's show. Reason being is because this is kind of like the first for everything. We just finished wrapping up our first Conversations with Asiya show, where you was our director, so that was a first for us, and also your directorial debut. And now this is your first time actually being interviewed on a show, so this is very, very exciting for me. So tell the audience, a little bit about who Jasmine Ballew is and about Bayou's Corner.
Okay, I guess I'll talk to you because I'm probably not gonna look in the camera, but basically, I'm an entrepreneur. This is my first time being a host for anything, so as you know, Bayou's Corner is my first talk show. It's about mental health. It's by youth for youth, so the target audience is obviously a younger audience, and we basically just try to talk about mental health and break it down in simple conversation where it's just kind of like an everyday conversation where people don't have to feel like there's taboos or stigmas around the label itself anymore.
Right. So is there a particular reason why you chose mental illness? Is it something that is near and dear to your heart, or was it just something that you saw was a topic that wasn't being discussed enough and you wanted to take up that cause?
I actually chose it for two reasons. One of them being that I do myself struggle with anxiety, so it was something that I wanted to discuss because I feel like in a lot of Black and brown communities, if you struggle with a mental illness, it's something that we're not really told to talk about. If you have anxiety or something like that, you're just kind of seen as the awkward kid or something like that. Or if you have depression, it's just kind of oh, well, he's just tripping, he always is in his feelings or something like that. It's just we don't really try to define it. And then the second reason being, I am, my main goal is to be a screenwriter and a director. So my first screenplay is actually about mental health and addiction and stuff like that. So I figured that this being my first, show, it would probably be, a good journey to get to where I need to get that production for the first film.
Right. I think that's great because you brought up something that's really important. You said in the, brown and Black community that it's a taboo topic. It's something that's not talked about enough. So I keep it real, and it's a journey for me as a mom. I've never particularly struggled with anxiety myself or known anyone in my family personally that did. We may have, but because it wasn't talked about, it may have been in our family. Growing up, did you find that at times that me, myself, didn't understand exactly what you were going through, or were there times where you felt that I was of assistance, and that's what made you want to bring that topic on maybe for other mothers who are struggling with children who may have, some form of mental illness?
I think it was kind of split down the middle. I felt like growing up there was certain times where because mental health there's a lot of different ways that it comes out. A lot of times when people hear anxiety, they're they assume shaking or nausea. And I mean, a lot of times it can be that, but sometimes it can also be things as that are seen as irritability. So a lot of times, sometimes people will tell me oh, you seem moody, or you seem like you're in a bad mood right now. But sometimes it's just me kind of being worried and kind of being in my own head and not really wanting to stress anybody else out. So I'll kind of just be keeping that to myself, and I'll look like I'm being restricted or cut off or whatever. So I feel that was pretty much the only time that I've really struggled with that. Other times when I've had other symptoms of anxiety, people can usually see it and be oh yeah, looks like she's having an anxiety attack or a panic attack right now. But with other ones where it seems more she's being mean, or she's being she has an attitude, those are less likely to be seen and recognized and
Did you feel that as a mom, not necessarily dealing with that same issue, did you feel that I was able to handle that, being that we are of the, brown community? Did you feel that mom actually was able to, detect when you were in those moments and was able to be of assistance? Or did you find that it was difficult for even us, for me to be able to embrace the fact that you were actually struggling with this?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, it was harder, but once it became more of like a thing where I was starting to like know myself and maybe what my triggers were, I was able to like communicate with you, and there was like more of like an understanding between the two of us. But I feel like obviously if you don't know what's going on, and I didn't even know what was going on, that's kind of like hard for there to be an understanding between the two of us and stuff like that. So
Right. So being that, mom's a single mom. You know, I've raised you and your brothers in a single parent home. I've always been someone who's either in management, leadership role somehow in my former, 9 to 5, and then now becoming an entrepreneur. Did that impact your wanting to become an entrepreneur yourself, or was that something that you always knew that you wanted to become?
No, I feel like I probably was swayed by you being an entrepreneur because even thinking back when I was younger, I used to say that I wanted to be a veterinarian. So even then I used to say, though, when I was younger, I wanted my own veterinarian office because remember I was saying like I wanted to have like my own rules where I could like send the patients
Jasmine,
like
you wanted to have Noah's Ark.
gifts.
I
was like I wanted to like be able to send the patients gifts if they had like had a loss or something. So I mean even then it was kind of like I wanted to be able to have my own rules.
Yeah.
So I guess it was partly in my personality, but partly like seeing you actually do it was kind of like making it more like realistic and more of a thing that I felt like it was a actual goal I could reach, you know?
Were there some cons? Because there are definitely perks to being an entrepreneur. Did you find being a daughter or, because we do, being in the brown and Latina, African-American community, there are a lot of single mothers out there. Do you find that there were some cons in being a daughter of an entrepreneur? Because we always talk about the perks of being an entrepreneur, which definitely they are. But were there some cons that you can talk about that maybe some other girls or young boys even going through?
I guess with being an entrepreneur, the one thing that you kind of have to know and like understand is that it's not going to happen overnight. So there's a lot of times where you don't really have as much money as you may be used to if you were working a 9-to-5 job, or just not having the time or the availability and stuff like that in your schedule to do things that you just used to do when you had like a paycheck that was, like guaranteed basically. So it's just like, yeah, I feel like we did struggle a little bit in the beginning when you start to do your business a little bit more. But I feel like overall, once you kind of have like something in stone or like, I don't know, kind of like a routine, like we just kind of got used to it.
Do you find that mommy not being home a lot sometimes, or mommy having to work longer hours than normal, being from a single parent home, do you find that actually taught you more about tenacity and persistence and determination, or what would you say?
I feel like you having the business and everything, that probably taught me more of like the better qualities of being like independent. When you used to not be at home, that would be more like me, like being mischievous. Like that taught me more like, how to get around and like how to.
Oh, we talking real talk now,
and,
okay?
Yeah, I was like
you had parties in my house?
You already knew this, but okay, like that's not the subject. But basically, So I mean, you doing the business more taught me like the other qualities, but you not being home, that more just was like me, like
So for a young lady growing up and here, seeing that her mom is going through that, dealing with working long hours and trying to build a legacy for her children, if you could look back at the younger Jasmine, would you go back and do those same things? And what would you tell a young lady that's actually living that life right now as far as the mischievous part of it?
What do you mean, like?
Would you recommend doing that, or looking back, do you say like, my mom was working to build a legacy for me and my brothers? Would I necessarily utilize my time in that way while she was working hard? And what would you tell a young lady who might be actually doing that or thinking about doing that while their parent is working to leave a legacy for them? And why? Why would you what would be your reasoning behind it?
I guess what I would say to teens that are young or women in my predicament or was in my predicament before, if somebody or your parents away working a lot, obviously that leaves a lot of time for you to get into like mischievous things, but I feel like that just kind of goes in with life. I feel like sometimes when you give people freedom, they try to take advantage of it, but I feel like in life there's always going to be opportunities for freedom. So it's like you don't always have to take the opportunity the first time it's given to you, because chances are the first time you're giving a little bit of freedom, you're probably not going to know what to do with it, and you're probably going to be too young to really like know like what to trust or who to trust. So it's like you might want to just kind of like wait on that opportunity to take advantage of the freedom. So I would just say just be patient, because you're going to get enough freedom in your life as you want anyway. So it's kind of like, you know, try to learn about yourself, try to focus on school, especially because when I was in my junior and senior year, I was not focused on school like at all, and it's something that I do wish that I was more focused on, because, you know, I might have been able to go to college, and I feel like everything happens for a reason, so maybe I wasn't supposed to go to college my first year and everything like that, but I also just feel like you don't always have to go through like trials, like and errors, like trials in order to learn like your lesson. Like you don't always have to get burned in order not to touch the stove, you know?
Right.
I don't know.
Right. No, that's a great observation, because I think there's a lot of young people that do take, you know, take advantage of freedom that's given to them and not necessarily know what to do with it, just being inexperienced. So I appreciate you sharing that. This is my sharing moment, and this is my truth with you, is that, you know, we always talk about being mini me, and people say, oh, you look just like your mom and things like that. But I just want to tell you, just seeing your journey, there were times, you know, Jasmine, that I felt that maybe I failed you, in times when you were struggling or felt like maybe I wasn't there enough or understood you enough. And it's like you said, everything happens for a reason, and you have inspired me so much. You know, one of the reasons why I'm doing Conversations with Asiya and actually did my first show is because of you, and sharing your voice and, you know, finding your truth and your passion. It just helped me to expand my brand in doing that. And I wanted to tell you that. I wanted to tell you that you are just a huge inspiration to me. And I would like to, you know, hear, was that something that you felt that that I didn't feel that way about you? Because sometimes girls are looking for that validation from their mom. I know that I've struggled with that my whole life, looking for that. And did you ever feel like that? Like I didn't?
No.
If you didn't know.
I felt like you've always been like proud of me. I feel like if even in the past when we've had issues, it's more of just been like a thing about understanding each other, I guess. And like being able to communicate with each other, but it's never really been a thing for me personally where I felt like you didn't know that I had good intentions and that you like didn't know that I was like a good person. It was just like sometimes there was like just a lot of issues where we weren't understanding each other. I was always more looking for validation, I guess, from like my dad more, but not really you. Like it was never really a thing for me that I felt like I like needed it, I guess.
Okay. If you could tell mommy one thing that you never shared with me before, is there anything that you've never shared with me before that you would like to share your truth with mommy? Because I just shared my truth with you. Is there anything that you would want to say? And if you don't, it's okay. It's cool.
I don't know.
Girl, don't be trying so hard to think. If you don't got nothing, you ain't got nothing.
For real. Like, I'm like, I don't think there's anything
cool,
really
it's
that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't really think so. I'm just kind of like, you know, I feel like I pretty much tell you everything, and I'm like a pretty private person, so it's like if I do have anything to say, like usually I'll just kind of say it if I'm close with you. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like.
Well, I have something that I would love for mommy being an entrepreneur and you being an entrepreneur. I would love for us to actually do something together.
Okay.
An actual show,
I feel like we do something together all the time,
together.
though.
Yeah, we do, but it's always in support of what mom's doing, or I'm supporting something that you're doing. But I'm talking about collaborating
I feel you.
and actually doing something together. I mean, I work with young women and I work with, you know, older women, and they do struggle with mental illness. Some of them, or they've had something traumatic happen, and that's something that you really want to speak and bring, you know, a voice to, and everything. Do you have any ideas of how maybe we can actually do that?
No, but I mean, maybe we can do like a class together, and I mean, maybe not even like a continuous class, but like maybe just like one class or something, or
I was thinking something else.
A workshop or like a episode.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking a documentary.
What kind of documentary?
A documentary of women, you know, brown and black and Latina women who are, you know, coming and talking about their journey in their city or just in the corporate world, but really dealing with issues like yourself and the platform being about empowerment and how they've pushed through, you know, the journey that they've gone through and pushing through, and that encouraging someone else who may be, you know, going down that same path and feeling like they might give up. I think doing a documentary and you being the person behind it would be great, because you share that and I share the platform of that. So I was thinking more of bringing your talent on behind the screen and actually doing a documentary, because I've always wanted to do something like that.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
And I've never done documentary, so that'd be like a first for me too. So,
what would you say to, you know, like you said, we went through our struggles. I mean, we were extremely close when you were little, and then we went through that preteen, teenage years, and like you said, you struggled a lot with the absence of your dad, and we went through a lot. You know, what would you recommend to a mother, a mother like myself, or a daughter, in getting through that period? Because we actually did something that, again, is taboo, but we did it because we realized that it was something that we needed to do to get through that hump, and that's actually seeking therapy. And that's something that people act like therapy is a punishment or something like that. What would you speak to that to say, you know, for someone who might be going through the hard times that we actually went through?
Yeah, I would agree. Go to therapy. I feel like therapy is pretty essential in pretty much everything that you do. I feel like before a couple gets married, they should go to therapy. I feel like before people have kids, they should go to therapy. I feel like through life, like, we go through so many things that's just like, you don't know what's going on with you, like, inside, like, in your mental state. So it's just like, before you decide to bring someone else on, the best thing you could do is just kind of figure out what's going on with you. Because a lot of times I feel like people internalize things and they feel like other people are treating them a certain way because of how they feel about themselves. So sometimes when you go to therapy, you can kind of find out, like, oh, the reason why you're arguing with this person is not because they're doing this, and this to you. It's because
really about what's going on with you.
Yeah, exactly. It's because you're feeling like this and that, and this person's just kind of triggering that or whatever. So it's just like, I don't know, I just feel like that's a huge thing that people should probably do, is just go to therapy, because that's just a whole other person that has nothing to do with the situation, like, giving an opinion on the matter, you know?
So you having the platform of mental illness and therapy obviously being a positive towards that end, what would you say was the best thing that you took away from mommy and daughter going to therapy? What was the one thing that you took away, other than what you just spoke about? Or what was the one thing that you took away that helped our particular situation, that maybe someone listening can say, wow, that's what we're going through?
I guess more just listening before you speak, because sometimes you think you know what somebody's thinking, or you think you know what somebody's going to say, and it's not, or, you know, you're not giving it your full attention, so you're not completely understanding all of, like, what they're saying. So it's just like, make sure you just, like, listen to everything before you try to, like, snap back at people, because sometimes what you're saying could escalate the situation farther than it even needs to go, you know?
Right.
So that's pretty much it, really.
So with you, you know, doing, you know, now that we've come and we've kind of evolved, and now we're doing our entrepreneurial thing together, and obviously, you know, I love having you here with me and things like that. Kind of tell everybody, where are you looking to go with Bayou's Corner, and working as an intern with Young Boss Media? You know, what was that journey like with Young Boss Media, and then where do you want to take, you know, Bayou's Corner?
As far as Young Boss Media, it was just kind of something that kind of like happened. I was looking for another job on Indeed, actually, and then I ended up just looking and seeing that they had, like, a internship open. I applied for it. I didn't really have any expectations going into it. I was just kind of, like, keeping an open mind and just seeing what was going to happen. And I ended up really liking the whole program and Monica and everything, so I just decided to jump on with it. I initially just kind of, like, jumped in and was starting to get to know everybody in the team. Like, I wasn't taking any kind of classes or taking any type of, like, or, like, doing any type of
just
production.
More of observing.
Yeah, it was more like just an observing time, really. I was just getting to know everybody. And then after that, that's when I took some of the classes, like production classes, editing classes, where I got, like, certified and everything. And then that's when I started to do the show and just kind of, like, rolled with it from there.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say this entire thing's just kind of just been like a learning process. So it's like I'm still even now just kind of like learning. Okay, like what should like my next steps be? Like how should I do it next season? And like you know what I mean? Like it's just a learning process.
So before we get into where you're looking to go, or maybe what some of your thought processes are, working with Monica. Monica was actually our first guest on Conversations with Asiya. So working with Monica, what would you say that experience was like? Because I find that a lot of times when we find that mentor and it's same sex, you know, we can mirror one another. You know, it's almost like having a second mom or a big sister. So what did you take? What things did you take away from working with Monica that you found was most impactful for you?
Okay, so the thing with Monica, she actually, I don't know like what it is, but she actually has like the same birthday as one of my old best friends, and like me and her, like we were
What's
always
her birthday?
October 9th.
Okay.
So like initially, like even from jump, we kind of like hit it off with each other. Like we always just kind of like naturally been able to talk and communicate with each other. So it's always been for me, like I've had a great level of like respect for Monica, and like I really looked up to what she said and everything like that, just because of the way she carried herself and everything. Yeah, I feel like being that I'm a woman of color, it's like really important to me to see representation, that there is like a woman of color and working inside the media industry, and she's, you know, pretty much like a boss. Like she calls the shots, and she's not really afraid to like say anything to anybody.
Yes,
so it's
she
like,
does.
So yeah, let's say, so for me, it's just like kind of inspiring, because sometimes I'm like, you know, when I'm thinking about like how I want to be in the industry a couple of years from now, I'm always just like trying to like
That's a point of
pull,
reference.
like pull from like what Monica does, because I'm like, you know, I really would like to be.
I know
a lot
exactly
like that.
what you mean. I remember when I came, when you told me about, you know, your whole internship in MNN and the whole thing, and how I can get conversations with Asiya started. And I remember I met Monica for the first time. I didn't actually speak to her first. I actually saw her in a meeting with you guys. And I remember I walked out, I was like, she ain't somebody to play with. I was like, she was about her business. She was in there calling the shots, and this time. And I actually respected that. I was like, wow, she's about her business.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess, yeah, what you're saying is representation is really, really important. So, okay. So so where do you see yourself? You kind of touched on it with saying that you kind of pull from that point of reference. Where do you see yourself? Do you find that you'll be doing some of the same things, or do you have like a different spin of the legacy or something that you want to leave with Young Boss? I mean, not with Bayou's Corner.
For me, I feel like Monica has reached the point where she's more like not only trying to help herself and elevate herself, but she's trying to elevate others. I'm not gonna lie, I'm probably still at the level where I'm still trying to figure myself out. So like for me, like my next, like initially my first couple of steps, just like what I'm thinking, just, you know, the next year or so, is just kind of me like fleshing out the show more. Because this was my first season and I was able to go back and edit and like see some of the footage and stuff, it's definitely helped me for next season. I work on like more questions I want to ask, or different types of questions I want to ask, different type of guests I want to get. So for me, it's just kind of like I want the show to keep going, but besides that, I also want to work on a lot of other stuff that's just more like for myself and everything, as far as the screenwriting, networking, and just like, yeah, working more towards being inside the media industry, you know what I mean? While still having the show on the side, you know?
So if there was a young girl, if there was a young lady who was looking to get into just not necessarily even the industry of media, but just a young girl who struggles like yourself with some form of mental illness, which is your passion, and she's trying to push through, because I know you and I have discussed your first couple of takes in doing your own show, you really was having anxiety doing this, but we continued to push through. And I remember you telling, Mom, that really helped me. And I remember you saying Monica was helping you, push through. What would you say to a young lady in any profession that she wants to go through and she's feeling like maybe this mental illness is going to prohibit me from being able to, accomplish my goal? What would you say to her?
That's really tricky, I guess, because for me, like I said, I'm even trying to tell myself there's a lot of things that even now I really want to do. Like, for example, like I would love to get into pageants and like stand up. that's like two things that I'm like really, really interested in, but it's because of like the anxiety. Like I really like, I'm like, okay, like I'm not sure if I can do that. But there are two things that I am pretty passionate about. So
And I think
it's
you
just,
mentioned writing competitions also.
writing competitions I already do, because that's like, you don't really have to be in front of people. They kind of just read the words and then you know what I mean. But like with pageants, it's like you gotta
have to be in front of
exactly.
people.
Same thing with stand up, you gotta be like right there. So it's just like there are two
Wait,
things.
when you say stand up, you talking about stand up comedy?
Yeah, I don't tell a lot of people that. Yeah, I was say because like I be telling
You
people,
never even told
and
mommy
then
that.
yeah, I know, but like I be telling people, and then they're like, oh, like why don't you do it? And I'm like, oh,
Well, you are
know, like I
goofy,
do
so-
want to like. But yeah, so it's something that I do really enjoy doing. I like making people laugh and stuff. But
If you get booed, I'll just act like we don't know
you know,
each other.
that's what I'm saying. Like if I get booed, like baby, that's it. Like I'm not leaving the house. So like, so I'm
I'm just kidding. I'll support you.
Thank you. So, like I said, so for me, it's like hard to tell other people, like, a girl, just like, forget it, just go and put yourself out there, because it's like, there's things like I really genuinely want to do, but it's like, I haven't been able to put myself out there. So,
But would you encourage her?
yeah, definitely. Like I said, I would just say, just keep working on it and just take baby steps, because sometimes I feel like the thing is, we'll put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be like,
Yeah.
okay, well, you need to do this. Like, if you just do this one thing, then everything's gonna like make sense. And I've kind of realized through this whole like filming episodes and everything, like, sometimes even like the littlest thing is kind of like a task, and it's like you're gonna have to get through that before you can be on stage.
So it's not
doing
skipping
all
the steps,
this. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's not skipping the steps and just
you
kind
gotta
of
do.
crawling before you can walk, and being proud of the steps that you take and being gentle with yourself. Wow, that's great. So if anyone wants to learn more about Bayou's Corner, when your show is gonna come out, where can they find you? Where can they find Jasmine Ballew, and where can they find Bayou's Corner?
If you guys want to find out more information about Bayou's Corner, go ahead and follow me on Instagram at jbblogs_. That's jbblogs_, all one word. Besides that, you can also catch episodes of Bayou's Corner that are going to be airing towards the fall. Probably on youngboss.tv, on YouTube, and probably MNN. So keep watch.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, for any mother-daughter that is watching, you know, this episode and thinking that you can't overcome, you know, those obstacles and breaks that you may have in your relationship, keep pushing for it. The love is worth it. Your daughter, your mother is worth it. You know, keep pushing at your relationship. If you have a commonality, you know, let that be the foundation to bringing you together, as me and my daughter did. And if you have a child, or you have a parent who's struggling with some form of mental illness, try to educate yourself on it as much as you can, because as Jasmine, you just mentioned, having the understanding of it and being able to interact with it allows you to interact with each other better. So for all of you, thank you for joining us. Again, thank you, Jasmine. We're happy to have you tonight. Thank you for joining us at Conversations with Asiya, where we educate in order to empower. Stay tuned for our next episode with another impactful woman or young lady in our community. Follow us on social media listed below, and let's know, you know, a topic or a powerful woman that you would like to see on our show. This is Asiya Nasir. Until next time, stay positive, productive, educated, and empowered.